Major news today is Attorney General Garland appoints this special counsel who will oversee the open criminal probes of Trump. That means the January 6th investigation and the stolen documents. Now, this was not a scheduled or telegraphed development. Some people are suggesting that the mere appointment of a special counsel makes charges in these cases more likely, or charges against Trump more likely. Now, as a legal matter, that's just not true. Over on the right, Trump's allies are suggesting that this new special counsel appointment, which adds a layer of some independence, they say it actually takes away independence, that its very existence is unfair to Trump. Now, that's not true according to these rules. What this action does is create a structure in what has already been the long process of these cases. It's a new layer in both cases because the probes into January 6th and the documents have already been going. Agents and prosecutors are already working to gather evidence and, if warranted, make a case for indictments. So let's go through a couple of doors here. If they don't think they have enough to indict in either case, well, that's where it usually ends. But if the same people involved in these cases and the agents, the line prosecutors, they don't change. If those same people do back indictments before today, they take the case to Garland. Now they take it to the special counsel, who still then takes it to Garland for the final call.
In certain extraordinary cases, it is in the public interest to appoint a special prosecutor based on recent developments, including the former president's announcement that he is a candidate for president in the next election, and the sitting president's stated intention to be a candidate as well. I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel.
So, midterm's over. Garland is saying Trump and Biden are essentially running for president, so he must do this. And that really boils down to the reason that he says the case is both extraordinary and thus this is in the public interest. In fact, let's play just that quick part.
It is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel.
Okay. So why is he saying that? If you really want to understand this, and again, there are reasons why this may be unnecessary, and there are reasons why a very respected attorney general who was a judge for a long time is saying that with his career, with his integrity, he concludes this is necessary. Well, those words aren't by accident. We've heard this exact rationale before. The man who appointed Bob Mueller, then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, actually said the same thing when he made that move in 2017, that it's in the, quote, public interest to appoint a special counsel. Now, this isn't some D.C. cliche. This isn't some piece of slang that suddenly is getting repeated all the time. Attorneys general are not even supposed to just trot out talking points. The reason it echoes is because it's actually based on the rules, which say when an AG does need to take this type of rare and sometimes consequential step, well, the rules say the Attorney General will only do so, appoint a special counsel, when they determine it would be in the public interest. Now, why is this in the public interest? According to the Attorney General, it is because of the extraordinary circumstance that you have the person at least involved in the center of these probes, whether they clear him or not, Donald Trump, now running for office. It's not even that he's a former president, right? We heard so much about the fact that in the Mueller probe, he was president at the time, and that did legally complicate things. Now, he's just some guy. He's a guy accused of having stolen documents down at his house to the point that a judge approved getting them back. He's a guy who's tied to a bunch of other folks who have been convicted of serious crimes in an insurrection. He's just a guy. But the extraordinary part, and I want you to understand this so you can make up your own mind about the legalities, Garland has concluded the extraordinary part is that this guy is running for office. Well, that's a key point because the last major special counsel probe of Trump was Mueller. And he racked up indictments. He faced down those Russian officials accused of meddling in our elections. He had the DOJ overseeing the big calls with Mueller. But if this is an optional layer, what's the alternative? The answer is, well, one answer is the Justice Department just going forward with the work without doing this. Because Garland cited these campaigns as the public interest special circumstances, right? I keep repeating that for a reason. Is that really special? I'm going to give you the answer with the evidence. No. Prosecutors investigate politicians all the time without special counsels. Donald Trump is just some guy. If he's elected president again, legally, he won't be some guy, and we'll report on that. But right now, he's just a guy. And the DOJ has investigated plenty of candidates and politicians without special counsels. Take a Democratic Senator, Bob Menendez. He was indicted for bribery allegations. He beat that case in a mistrial. DOJ dropped it. Take a very famous convicted politician who was actually, as a footnote, pardoned by Trump. Democrat Rod Blagojevich. He went to jail. He did hard time. He was convicted of corruption. There was no special counsel that led to any of that. Or just this year, in a case that got less attention, there was a Nebraska congressman convicted of lying while they were investigating illegal campaign contributions. No special counsel. Now, take it from a lawyer. Lawyers can debate words like extraordinary and public interest. But the history suggests you can investigate politicians, and it's not extraordinary or unusual. That's why it usually happens without special counsels. So this appointment doesn't mean Trump is more likely to be indicted at all. There's nothing that assumes that. It also doesn't mean it's less likely he'll be indicted. And there is nuance. So we heard just now, I walked through why Garland's move seems a bit unnecessary. We heard from a guest tonight about why he could have done something different. So is there any substantive defense of what Garland's doing? The answer is yes. And I want to share that with you, too, as part of our report. And it's going to be a little bit legal, but I think it's worth it. Let me show you right now how this special counsel does have different autonomy. Because the DOJ rules state that unlike basically everybody else at DOJ, the special counsel is not subject to day-to-day supervision of any official. That obviously includes Garland. And if there were a clash with any special counsel or this new one and Attorney General Garland, so let's imagine that the special counsel is so aggressive that he wants to do something that Garland opposes in the future. Well, extra autonomy, that type of clash will go public under the rules. You would hear about it because they say the Attorney General may reject an investigative or prosecutorial step that's unwarranted. That's why all the calls do go back to Garland. But if that happens, then the AG shall notify Congress. That means the special counsel has an extra kind of autonomy and power because if they had a losing battle, and typically, as we've seen in these cases, like you saw up in the New York case, the line prosecutors wanted to go at Trump and their boss didn't. Well, if that situation happened here, under the rules, you'd actually hear about it. It would go to Congress, and we know that means it would go public. So that could strengthen this prosecutor's hand in theory. But no matter what happens, it all still comes back to Garland. So what I just showed you, those rules are part of why people said Mueller had a stronger hand against basically everyone except the president. It's why people say this still is Garland giving someone even more authority than the line prosecutors have. Take that all together and think about where we are in America after what we've lived through. After 2 elections in a row where we basically had liars and election deniers running, where the Republican Party has been minimizing the insurrection, that's now been rejected again by many midterm voters. We've been talking about that. And so maybe there's some way around the corner, but boy, have we spent a lot of time hearing something that ought not to even be necessary to say, that politicians are like everybody else and nobody is above the law.
We can't allow people to decide that they are above the law.
You have forgotten what it means to say that no one is above the law.
In America, no one is above the law.
Excuse by excuse, we're putting Donald Trump above the law.
Tell this president and every other individual that no one is above the law.
No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
That's true. The last person speaking clearly was the Attorney General. And in his announcement today, he says that he made this unusual move in that spirit. Okay. Take it all together, whether you were interested in the legalese I shared or not about the what-ifs and the who-thens. Let me tell you what it all comes down to. If there's enough evidence that there has to be a hard call on whether to do something that's never been done before, because according to the evidence, many people think we've never had exactly a president like Donald Trump before. And the evidence suggests he should be indicted and tried and potentially sent to prison for what he's done in this country. In one case, while he was still president, Jan 6, in the other case, after he left office. If in either of those cases that's the call, well, the buck still stops with Mr. Attorney General. And if you think Garland is punting the decision to a different prosecutor, I've heard critics and supporters sort of say, yeah, this is a handoff. If you think he's pushing the hard call about all this, let's be clear, this is not actually a punt. It might be a short-term punt, but in the end, it's more like a kick that could be called back, or a play where you pass the ball and then somebody passes it right back to you and you're the one holding it, because all of this will come back to Attorney General Garland to make the decision. And I think at the end of the day, I try to be as real with you guys as I can based on what I can see with the evidence. No spin, no bias, no predictions. If you study Attorney General Garland's career, you have every reason to believe that this long-serving judge, this nonpartisan figure who ended up back in an administration, is doing what he thinks is right on the law and his career and integrity. At the same time, there's every reason to understand this as not passing it all the way off and not deciding to be aggressive to protect democracy, having been briefed on a case where certainly he has some information about what Trump did and what he knew. There's every reason to see this as something that ultimately cannot just have the time run out. The buck stops with the Attorney General. That's the system. Today slightly alters the process, but doesn't change where the buck stops. So at the end of the day, if Donald Trump or his top people committed crimes and there's evidence of that, it's going to be up to Attorney General Garland to decide, and he doesn't have till the end of time. Hey, I'm Ari Melber. Thanks for watching The Beat. I wanted to let you know I'm writing a foreword to the January 6th committee's full report, which is coming out soon from HarperCollins. You can go pre-order the book right now, and it'll come to you first when the report comes out in the fall or whenever the government releases it. Just search Melber Jan 6 on Amazon or your favorite independent book site and click pre-order. You'll be the first to get both the report and my new piece on the coup conspiracy. You can also go to melberbook.com and order it there.